What happened? What
I
happened?
can you see me? Or
I lost you. Can you see me?
May I
I'm hearing my
request,
echo now.
may I
I'm
request
hearing.
Dr. Zafar, can you please close this Zoom window? Yeah, that.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Dr. Nazneen Zaidi, and you are watching us live on Imamia Medics International YouTube page, also known as My TV. We'll begin our webinar with the recitation of holy verses. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد صدق الله العلي العظيم. I would like to welcome all of our audience who are joining from different part of the world for today's webinar, which is being brought to you by IMI Women's Wing Health and Wellness Series. So before I introduce the moderator of today's webinar, I would like to mention that our audience can put up their question in the comment box, and inshallah we'll share those questions with our expert in QA segment of the webinar. So without any further delay, I would like to welcome and introduce the moderator of today's webinar, Dr. Tasbih Fatima. She is a very important member of IMI Women's Wing New York chapter. She got her medical degree from Sindh Medical College, Karachi, Pakistan. Dr. Tasbih completed her residency from Mayo Clinic, Minnesota. Dr. Tasbih is a board certified adult psychiatrist. Currently, she is working and serving as a director of partial psychiatric program at North Central Bronx Hospital, New York. And she is an assistant professor in Albert Einstein School of Medicine, New York. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Tasbih, and over to you.
Walaikum salam. Thank you, Nazneen. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. On behalf of Imamia Medics organization, I would like to warmly welcome all of you. Thank you for joining us today for this important and timely discussion on cyberbullying and its mental health implications in adults. We are delighted to have Dr. Zahar Naqvi with us today. Dr. Naqvi is a psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, and he serves as a faculty at Harvard Medical School and University of Massachusetts Medical School. In addition to his clinical and academic work, he's also a poet, a Sozo Salam reciter, and an analytical writer whose work explored the poetry of renowned Urdu poets, including Ghalib Mir Faraz and Munir Niazi. Dr. Naqvi, thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge, expertise, and insight with us today on cyberbullying and its impact on adult mental health. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Zafar Naqvi.
Thank you, Dr. Tasbih, and thank you, IMI. Thank you, Dr. Fareem and Nazneen Zaidi and Batul. I don't want to forget any names, so I think that I'm covering all the names. Thank you for giving me this platform to talk about that. And as you rightly said, it is a very it's a topic which should be discussed more, and it's not being discussed that often and not in that length. One thing I need to tell that I am more used to an interactive session, so that if the audience have some questions in between, I mean, sometimes they want to ask me, they want to ask me to elaborate on certain things. But I think here what we have planned, and that at the end, I am happy to answer all those questions as they come. You can write it down for us. So can we begin?
Yes, please.
All right. So first of all, this is a disclaimer that it has nothing to do with the department, the Harvard Medical School, because this is my own private presentation. So cyberbullying, as we all know, that refers to the use of the internet technology or online technology to cause harm people. with this intention of harming people. It involves the use of internet, mobile phones, social media, like one of the primary channels like Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, etc. Deemed a public health problem since a very long time, and we'll talk more about that, with the prevalence of bullying being doubled from 2007 to 19, and the new research data is also coming. The problem is that much of the focus of the research is around teenagers, adolescents, and children, not on the adults. Today we'll be talking more about adults. The other problem with the research that they are more talking about the effect on the victim. They're not talking about why somebody is became a cyberbully, what are the dynamics of that, and how to deal with those. So mostly I think this is the gap in the literature at the moment. UNESCO in 2019 basically announced that bullying in an online world, online world, raises the new challenges in terms of guidelines, and in terms of helping people how to um, you know how to stay away from this, I would say, menace, because you'll see that how historically it has also taken lives of people. So, but in US, I think we about to talk more about that. I mean, the Facebook came around like around 2000, 2002, 2003, but we started to talk more about it in 2010. But now many states in US and some other countries also have laws about cyberbullying. When we talk about cyberbullying, Rede Parsons, this was an unfortunate 17-year-old. We all know that what happened in Canada, Nova Scotia, Canada, that she died after a suicide attempt that was preceded by the month of cyberbullying. Just briefly, that I think in the November of 2011, I think she was sexually abused, and then her photographs were basically, she was bullied because of that. She was harassed, and then she bullied that they exposed the photograph, and it I mean, it was a long story. And the thing is that we know that she attempted hanging after that. Now, that brings me to talk about a little bit about, if I use the word trap, if I say trap. So when we talk about people who are depressed, just asking about that, are you depressed? Are you not depressed? It doesn't make any sense. We need to basically give a credence, importance to what words they are using, because words are very important. They have connotative meanings, denotative meanings, and rhythmic meaning, and unconscious dynamic meaning. So most of the people, like I have been practicing psychiatry since around 25 to 30 years. And when they say use trap as a feeling, I am usually very, very cautious. She also was saying that I'm feeling trapped. So let's examine the word trap, because most of the time they end up attempting to hang themselves. If you look at the etymology of this word, traps come from like a device. So in English language, it comes from German and Dutch background. It is a device like contrivance, which can catch, and like just for rats, or they catch them. They put their feet onto that, and then they get killed. If you look closely, if somebody is trying to hang themselves, the last thing they do is, just after putting the noose and everything, after that they basically step out of whatever support they have, a table, and then that's the final thought that they have to kill themselves. So putting their feet onto that snatch. The other thing is, if you look at the whole anatomy of hanging, it can affect the trapezius, the anatomical muscle, trapezius on our neck, and that goes to this trap as well. If you reverse that, it become part. It also give you a message that somebody is trying to part ways from you or ending the life. Psychodynamically, we'll talk more about that later on. And that's why I just want to give you some kind of a, why it is important to give credence and pay attention to the words that the patients are speaking to us. Or the other thing with the trap is, there's a slang, in English slang, that shut your traps, which means shut your mouth. So you know that if somebody is trying to, put a noose or strangulate what he's or she is trying to do. So shut your trap is an old slang in English language. Then in 2016, Felix Alexander, this is from Worcester, UK. Again, this severe bullying started, and it went on for a few years. It started with just a incident when his parents didn't allow him to play a video game called Call of Duty. I think that was the name. And then, I mean, without going into detail, you guys can either you know or you can read about that. And that was a very unfortunate, a case of victim of a cyberbullying. We lost another life. 2017. Now this is something which is well known to everybody because it's from New Jersey. So and we also have I think Governor Brian Murphy in New Jersey in 2022 came up with a Mallory law, which is basically protection against somebody who's a victim of the cyberbullying. And that was a very tragic history. And then all of a sudden, she started to get negative, bullying and messages, emails, and very mean messages that that you are a loser and you don't want anything. When are you going to kill yourself? Things like so. So all these things basically put her into that kind of mindset. And we'll talk about later how victim can internalize those feelings and start feeling helpless and hopeless about the future. So the extent of the problem, I mean, it's escalated globally. More than 50% of children and adolescents worldwide reporting they experience online harassment. Across US, 58% of teens reported in most of the studies experiencing cyberbullying in their lifetime, with over 33% targeted in any given 30-day period. And with the advance of the AI now, so you can imagine that how it can become. It basically is gone from the playground into permanently into people's home. And if somebody, even like one message can stay there for a long time, and that's a problem which we will again discuss later on. If you go, so studies for adults are very few and far between. This is the data for adults prevalence. You can see that it is more in the young adults, and it goes so for 18 to 25, it's 41% report online bullying. And if you keep going down, age 46 to 55, it gets down to 13%, and older adults is around 6.5%. You'll be surprised to know that nobody is spared from that. Even the celebrities who are who have fan followings, they get trolled and things like that. The legal efforts. So the legal framework, again, since that 2010, a lot of changes are made globally. For example, in New Zealand and US, now we have started to think problem through the applying some criminalization, like the criminal code versus the civil code or civilian code. But in countries like Australia, Canada, and China, they still heavily try to modify, like for example, libel, defaming, try to modify that. They're not actually into putting that in the category of the criminalization. If we have time, we will touch base a little bit on the legal aspect of that today. No, I just put that as an example, the regional variation in policy responses. The good thing is that the European Action Plan, so recently they put up the plan, for creating some regulatory bodies regarding the menace of cyberbullying. Here in US, I think there's, again, they're still in a process of developing exact legal guidance and guidelines, because things, I mean, they can vary. The best, if you look by the state, the worst states are Louisiana, Alaska, and Georgia. They're having high rates of combined online harassment and physical bullying, or like cyber stalking as well. The lowest, so the best is Wisconsin and Massachusetts. So let's examine when we say that bullying can impact people's life to the extent of just they're in their house, they're just on their computer screens. So how impactful it can be. But the problem is that if you want to compare that from the in-person bullying, first of all, you have to test the litmus of all these points. The intention to harm. Anybody can just say that, oh, you know what, I was just joking, I did not intend to harm. Or anybody can say repeat. So if you compare from in-person bullying, the repetition can be taken as something which builds your case. But here, once the once it is online, right, it is there for forever, for life. And that's another thing, that there is no that they feel trapped. They cannot come out of that. Every time they go to internet, it is there. There's no way, even one time. So the repetition. So when you try to litmus it with the in-person bullying, the repetition thing, people are saying that whether it's apply here or not, because once it's there, it's always there. Power imbalance, which means I mean, anybody, if you're physically bullying some person, you have to be like some kind of power imbalance. Should be like a heavy guy or a tall guy, or having some kind of even financial advantage, or different advantages, or you're in a gang or something. But here, in any Tom, Dick, anybody can just for change their ID and go and then start bullying you, and then people can join and gang up on them. And the anonymity is also a kind of thing which makes the victim very helpless, because if you imagine that somebody is bullying you, right, and if you can target your response, then if they have some human responses, they can feel bad about you, that that's your plight, empathy towards you. But that is not the case in the cyberbullying as well. I usually give an example. We see a lot of road rages, and if you have you ever thought about that? That if, for example, somebody, we are taking our baby in a cot, right, and somebody hit the cot and the baby, we do not have that kind of road rage or rage versus people who have road rage every now and then, every day on the road. The difference is, if you're taking your baby in the car, there is always a human exchange, like eye-to-eye contact, apology, eye and eye apology, which is not present when there's somebody is cutting you off, or getting passed by you. There's no apology made. So that's the difference. That's why you do not have that kind of rage, although that person has just hit the cord of your baby. So these are the things which are important to understand. So this is the same thing that we're talking about. This is sort of unrelenting harassment, which unstoppable. It's 24/7. You get up in the morning, you get that. If that kind of having a negative comment or sarcastic comment, and because it is also non-confrontational, I mean, anybody can be anonymous. So there is no accountability. There is no there's nothing actually. I mean, that person who's a bully, who can just enjoy for 5 minutes and just for next 23 hours and 55 minutes of the day, he changes his ID again, and enjoy his life and come back again for 5 minutes and start teasing that person. So that kind of it's a very disadvantaged position if you compare from the regular bully versus online bully. I think we talked about that. So, I mean, I have to quickly go through a lot of slides, but I will be happy to answer Q&A. So how it happens, I mean, that's something, that everybody knows, that it's repeated behavior, that it means to harm through the online. It can involve. Sorry?
We are good to go.
Is it, hello?
No, we are good to go.
So you can continue, yeah.
Yeah, it can involve spreading cruel rumors. People can impersonate you, and that's, I mean, now with the AI, they can impersonate your voice, and you change your photographs, and so they can just basically more and more menace for the people, especially the victims, who are sometimes they basically caught themselves in a situation where, again, the word trap, they feel trapped in that. So, and it can be just sending. So, even, I mean, when I say anybody, it can be your best friend, it can be your brother, it can be your sister. I will give you an example. One of my patients, regarding how she was basically bullied by two of the best friends. When you look at it, so if you want to go by what are the most common forms, so exclusion. So usually in boys, in men, it's more like a physical bullying. In females, is basically they bully by exclusion or ostracizing somebody from the group. So you're in a group, just take them out and start bullying them. We are not allowing you back in the group. Hurtful comments, public. So it's almost, if you see the percentages, 30%, it's almost the same. Also, females are also at the receiving end of spreading rumors and pictures about them, versus boys, more kind of a something related to their physical appearance, or more kind of physical bullying, which basically starts with online and ends up being a real-time bully and start a physical fight. Types of cyberbullying: flaming, using inflammatory language, nickname, derogatory remarks. I mean, you can easily relate what politicians and people keep on doing every day. Doxing is if you're sharing the very private information, embarrassing information. Trolling is basically done with the agenda to put division and chaos. And then hatred and name calling. It's surprising that in one of the studies, 42% of teens reported receiving offensive messages via phone and internet. Spreading false rumors, fabricating, disseminating untruthful information about them. And then this non-consensual explicit this is where it starts to enter into the rubric of criminalization, when they are sharing non-consensual pictures or non-consensual stuff for anybody. That's called cyber stalking. That's the serious type of cyberbullying, which basically they start to have like some credible threats, direct threats, which is a threat to the safety of the victim. And they also sometimes start kind of gang up and invite other people to join them in harassing them and harassing about the physical threats. 16 to 18%. And again, most of the studies, because they're in teenagers and kids, that's why I had to resort. 16 to 18% of teens reported having been the victim of physical threats. Now, what impacts we have on mental health? So I will try to quickly go through that, but I'll answer more extensively in the Q&A. So panic and social anxiety. What is the root cause of any anxiety? Root cause of any anxiety is fear. If you're afraid of height, you have acrophobia. If you're afraid of closed spaces, you have claustrophobia. If you're afraid of everything, you have generalized anxiety disorder. If you're afraid of unknown danger, you have a panic disorder. If you're afraid of your hands being contaminated with dirt, you have OCD, and so on and so forth. So root cause is anxiety. And what is the root cause of depression? The root cause of depression is any loss. It can be a financial loss, it can be a relationship loss, it can be a status loss, it can be a loss of your family house or things, so loss of your loved ones. So loss is the root cause of depression. Fear is the root cause of anxiety. It can bring up the any social anxiety or any kind of anxiety. It depends on the content of the bullying. Now, depression, yes, everybody knows that they have more depressive episodes, but they also have bipolar depression, which is a different entity, which is a more severe form. It is not a bipolar disorder. It is not bipolar 1. It is not bipolar 2. It is a different entity, clinical diagnosis, bipolar depression, which actually has, if you follow the trajectory, that it usually starts with, so in a regular bipolar disorder, they usually start with a manic episode and then depressive episode follows. In bipolar depression, depressive episode first comes, and then sometime you can have some manic episodes, and then usually it's more depressive episodes. Depression starts to get more deeper and deeper. The features in this, that you have problems sleeping in the nighttime, but you are more sleepy in the daytime. Your mood swings, extreme irritability, and problem in relating to people. And these people, bipolar depression, they have more suicidal attempts. So that's an entity again which needs to be further explored on. And it has been, if somebody has a history of depression, it is the trajectory of their illness can start to link or become more like a bipolar depression. Now, severe trauma and PTSD. Everybody knows in PTSD you have nightmares and flashbacks. I will say, do we have time? So, if we have time, I will explain the psychopathology of the nightmares and flashbacks, why they are there, and what is the significance of that. Low self-esteem, social isolation. So let me just stop here. When I say social isolation, feeling of loneliness comes from if you are living in a shame dynamics, right? If somebody is shaming you, and again, we'll talk more about shame later on, but if somebody is shaming you, you have your psyche actually starts to live in a situation that you create a false self. So you just to protect your true self goes behind, and you start to put a false persona or false self just to save your true self. Now, but guess what? If you do that, you get up in the morning and you meet with 50 people or 30 people or 20 people, and you're basically meeting with them with your false self. So interaction is with your false self. When you go to bed in the night time, when you meet yourself or you meet your true self, that is lonely because all the interaction that you made was from your false self. Your true self is lonely because there's no social interaction, no social oxygen. Suicidal ideation, we talked about that, including also deliberate self-harm, cutting, hitting, head banging, and these problem falling asleep, staying asleep, problem in relating to people, so relationship problems. They start to develop this fear that any human being, so they start to go to a point when they start thinking of divorcing the human race because humans are monsters for them. Avoid doing things, and then increased feeling of fatigue, anger, irritability. Anger, I always say that if you really want to look at the anger, and anger is one of the most important kind of emotions in the repertoire of human emotions or human feelings, because anger, if you put a D before anger, if you write anger and put D in front of that becomes danger, which means that it's like a red flashing light in front of your car's dashboard, which is actually giving you an indication that there's something wrong with your tire pressure, your brakes, or your fuel, something wrong. So anger is just kind of a tip of the iceberg. It is a signal anxiety. It is a signal that there's something deep down, and you need to actually find out where this anger is coming from. So that's important. And then people start to resort. So when you're living in shame dynamics, there's a high likelihood that you resort to substance use, drugs and alcohol, to modulate your feelings and emotions. Treatment, because we talked about it, it is unrelenting, 24/7. So we have to basically do like two types of. One is immediate, how to help somebody who's the victim, and the other is in the long run, help them legally, for legal or legislative help for them. So how to deal with the cyberbully? I listed everything here. I think most of the things you guys already know. It's not a rocket science, but it's always good to go through that, because in the heat of the thing, you probably forget what are the things which you need to do in these situations. So keep record of everything in messages, Facebook Messenger, Facebook, Instagram, anything like screenshots. Do not feed the line. Do not, if you want to respond to the bully, just say like one statement that stop doing that in a very assertive tone, and that's it. They should receive the message. But anything, if you keep on engaging them, that's basically feeding the line. And do not give any personal information. You need to also understand, sometimes the victims start to think that it's their fault. No, it's not your fault. Even if you willingly participated in a conversation with somebody, you're not giving them a right to start bullying you. So guilt versus, I just want to quickly touch upon this, because if somebody is shaming you or unloading their own problems, deep feelings, shaming you, you need to understand to step away from that, because people use these words guilt and shame, right? They're two very strong human emotions. People use these emotions interchangeably, but they're exactly opposite of each other, and I will tell you how. So let's spend one minute on that. So if somebody is living in a emotion of guilt, so he or she will think that he has done something wrong, right? Guilt is empowering. Shame is disenfranchising or disempowering. Guilt, somebody is having guilt feeling. He think that he's done something wrong. He wants to rectify that, and he become more powerful. It gives power that you can change the situation by rectifying it by making amends and going to people. Versus shame, if somebody is shaming and blaming you, you have you think that honor what I have done. I have done. I don't know. I don't have a clue what I have done to have this situation. So you withdraw. You go away from people. So if you can see, I just demonstrated that exactly diametrically opposite. Guilt takes you towards people. Shame takes you away from people. Shame withdraws you, like at 180-degree difference. But guess what? If you are withdrawing from people, right? Shame, like guilt is helping you go to people. Shame, you're withdrawing. If you're withdrawing from people, if you're by yourself, who will be your best friend? Your best friend will be your drugs and alcohol, right? You start to use, so there are more and more use of drugs and alcohol. You talk about that. Don't accept any guilt feeling or embarrassment. It's not your fault. And the next thing that you could do, that if you know where is the source, try to go to the department, try to take some course of action. Even if it's coming from your family, try to talk to the elders of the family so that things can be sorted out. But for example, I mean, if we are dealing with kids are always being held by the adults, because there was a time when they were not reporting to their parents because they thought that they will shame them. But now I think the recent studies say that the reporting from the kids to the parents is double now, like 30% versus 60%. And it is basically starting to have a good outcomes. Now, in extreme bullying or threats, you have to report to authority, and we'll talk about that, when to report. So this is the immediate treatment that you, and then the other set of treatment that you do. We talk about biopsychosocial, so biological treatment. You treat the cause, psychotropics, optimize the dose for antidepressant, anti-anxiety. In the psychological, we go for narrative therapy. So this allows a victim to externalize the trauma. You try to build and solidify their own story, and not to buy the bully story. The narrative therapy always make me think about Bibi Zainab, because if he was not there, he wouldn't have. People were bullying Imam Hussain also by creating false reports, or false kind of misreporting about him. And if it was not for Bibi Zainab, so she actually did in those times, she did the narrative therapy. She changed, she recreated, and she helped people to understand what actually happened. CBT, basically for cognitive restructuring, help identify the stress triggers, manage their physiological responses to trauma, and to think what's going on, try to zoom out and try to, rather than just blaming themselves, try to start to think what's going on. And then trauma-informed care like EMDR. This is very famous nowadays, and it is, I mean, it is effective, it works. It has some modification now, but it really works for trauma. Socially, I mean, I like that, because digital detoxing, strict boundaries, that you just stay away from that, because the more you're indulging into that, it's going to be more stressful. And try to have some alternate physical exercises, support networks, build your own supportive network, rather than getting into this trap by the bullies. Hang on. Quickly, let me just summarize. It's basically, there is no it's by case basis. Nowadays, I mean, if they are going to the extent of cyber stalking, credible threats, actual threats, to the point that you start to feel intimidated, frightened, extreme distress, then you have all the rights to go and seek legal help. Now, when we talk about legal help, there are two types of help. One is the civil court, the other is the criminal court. So, for example, civil court, you can file the defaming or libel. And by the way, if you write one letter, if one letter from your attorney goes to the bully, most of the time they get scared with that. So that's the civil part. But the criminal part, I mean, it also depends how you felt. Let me give you an example, and you will understand this point better. One of my patients, she had eating disorder. She was actually bullied online by her two best friends, two or three best friends in a group, and they used to do the name calling. So she was my therapy patient. So she used to come and see me every week. And then there was a time when she said that Dr. Naqvi, although they're my friends, and they rather than saying me a fat girl, that was something. They are actually now gave a code word to that. Instead of saying fat girl, they are saying 99. And I said, why is they saying 99? She said, because that's my year of birth. I said, okay. So is it something helping you? She said, no. Since I don't know why, since they have coded that, it is even more stressful. It's more annoying, hurtful to me. So we kept on having sessions and sessions. Now her weight improved from 92. She was 92 pounds, 93 pounds. When she reached 99 pounds, right? That is the time which she remembered that she was sexually abused. She was raped when she was 13 and a half or 14 years old. So she remembered that was a body memory came back, because when she was at that time, her weight was 99 pounds. So it is also important that sometimes we do not remember, not the brain memory, but the body memory, when she went back to that weight from 90 to 99, which was improvement, right? Because we were doing therapy, her weight was improving. She remembered that about that incident that happened. And then she also linked it with, connected why she was more, that 99 was more hurtful to her. So again, it is something more, it depends upon how you felt that. And you can actually go for criminal charges, which means that like, for example, misdemeanor can convert it into felony. The difference between a misdemeanor and felony: misdemeanor is more, it's less than 1 year. Felony is more than 1 year, more fines, more charges. You cannot vote if you ever have a felony. You cannot vote, and there are some other privileges. The misdemeanor is in jail, but felony is in the prison. So there are differences. So you could actually go up to the felony charges. By the way, when we talk about in the beginning, if you remember about the Melbury case, they actually, the parents sued the school, and they got I think 9.1 million or something. That for that case. Do we have time, or we are done?
No, please go on. Please go.
Okay. So characteristic of victims. Now you can see that the LGBT community has highest one of the highest rates, to being bullied. Teens, girls, about like with false rumors. With boys also, so if you look at the percentage, boys versus girls, usually like 36% to 28%. But the difference is that with boys, after 13 years, it falls from 36% to only like 18 or 19%. But with girls, they keep on being targeted and being bullied. People who have low income household, or people who use, obviously if they're using internet more often, then they're more exposed. And as I said, anyone can be the victim. Even the famous celebrities and stars can be a victim of trolling and all, bad mouthing. I think we talked about that. I just wanted to put this slide. I mean, we've talked about all the mental health, but if you look at it, there's some physical health manifestations as well. If you're under stress, your high cortisol level, you started to have sleep disorders, GI problems, ulcers, chronic migraines. You can also have a weak immune system because of the regular being in that state of a hyperexcitable state and hyperarousal, and metabolic changes. So I mean, then you start to eat your emotions. So then your BMI increase, and then you go obese and cardiovascular problems. So these are also very common with cyber bullies. I think with this, I don't think we can cover the psychodynamics if people have questions, but I just wanted to end with this. And by the way, there's also like a whole talk about how, if you are a bully yourself, how to deal with that, because then you have certain characteristics like Machiavellian or psychopathic or narcissistic, how to deal with that. And I just wanted to show this, that there's help available? Yeah. So online help, stopbullying.gov. These are the numbers to call. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm ready for the Q&A.
Okay. Assalamualaikum, everyone. So we have few questions here. One is, what are the key differences between online bullying and in-person bullying?
I think we talked about that, the anonymity, right, and the repetition. That's a key difference. If it is there, it's there all for rest of the life. The anonymity makes kind of, in the physical bullying, you always the aggressor always have a chance to see the plight of the victim, and if he has some humanity, he can have some kind of empathy. How the ego processes the empathy, have a chance to tone down that kind of bullying. But here, I mean, there is no human connection, and they keep on doing that, and it keeps on multiplying every day. And it's also sometimes it's difficult to prove their intention. They say, oh, it was just an oblique joke, but it's difficult to prove the intention. So it's kind of more cruel. It's more cruel, so to have been a victim of a online bullying.
Okay. Guilt versus shame. Okay. So the other question I have is how to identify that a person in our surrounding is facing cyberbullying. How to make kids and young adult understand.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I think that these are the things. So if I resort back to those slides, if they have all those symptoms, let me show. If they're talking about that they feel trapped and they feel, the other thing they say that I'm bothering you so much. That's because their self-esteem goes so down. They start to internalize. They start to buy those things which have been projected onto them. If you can see change in their routine, let me show you where is the slide. Yeah, if you can see low self-esteem,
Yeah.
they are socially getting
Yeah.
isolated. They're more and more
Yeah.
depressed, having anxiety to meet people, problem falling asleep, staying asleep, problem with relating to people, so social isolation, and then start to show behaviors which are like self-harming, and avoid doing things which they like. If they like to have family dinners, if they like to have whatever hobbies they have, if they give up their hobbies, and then they're more irritable, angry outbursts, or if they're resorting to substances, all these things are the red flags, and especially the words that you are using. We talked about the trap word. So
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. The next question I have is, what coping strategies do you think are most helpful for adults facing online harassment?
So the coping, I think one of the coping is one of the things is, if you go back to on that slide we're talking about digital detoxing, right? Spend more time elsewhere. Try to limit your online time. Try to ignore people. And then when we talk about, I mean, there's a whole sets of coping in terms of coping as a community, because what they are thriving on, what the aggressor are thriving off, is they're looking for social validation, right? So if you stop giving them social validation, if people stop uh, you know uh, ganging up on them, if they do not get what they're looking for some kind of social validation. um, uh, so as a community, if you give them the message, any new messages is not tolerated. That's where we need to grow as a community. And the other coping mechanism that you can get is called cognitive restructuring in the CBT. You need to understand that if somebody is let me give you an example. There is an emotion called Schadenfreude. People have probably not. I mean, people talk about love, hate, and happiness and joy. There is an emotion in the human repertoire is called Schadenfreude, Scheudenfreud. It's a big name. Schadenfreude means it's an emotion. If you start to get pleasure out of people's misery. So if you see somebody in misery, you get pleasure out of it. Now, I'm giving you an extreme example. If all of a sudden you start to have this emotion, you really need to zoom back. This is not me. This somebody is putting their feeling. They're unloading their feeling onto. So that's where you need to find out that do not get into that. Do not buy things which do not buy emotions from. That's what they're doing. They're warding off. They're warding off their negative feelings onto you, in a hope that probably you are more psychologically sophisticated with them, and you can process that and give it back to them. This is the aggressor's own negative feeling. So try to, with practice, you can understand that, oh, this is something I'm feeling, which is very strange. It doesn't look like my feeling. So I think that's how, and this is what you learn in the therapy.
Okay, thank you. The other question is would it make someone more prone to be the target of online harassment, especially youngsters, as they share more details of day-to-day life online, like on social
Yeah, I
media?
think we let me share that slide again.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's showing everything that and they're right. Youngsters, girls, people who are using more and more internet, people who are from low financial background. Let me just give me because I want them to look at that slide again. Here you go. Can you see?
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. So, definitely. So the other question I have is, does having a social support group online or in person help the victim of bullying?
Yes, absolutely. This is one of the coping as a community.
Okay. The other is, I think someone wants to just elaborate the meaning of guilt versus shame. You mentioned in one of your slides that what is guilt and what is shame.
So if you want, there are basically, if you look at the classification of emotions, there's several different kind of classification of human emotions, 17 or 18 type. But one of the basic type, easiest type is which you divided into primary human emotions and secondary human emotions. What are the primary human emotions? The primary human emotions are those emotions which are visible on your face. You do not need to know the language. So you do not need to know a Chinese language, or you don't need to know French or Persian in order to observe that emotion. For which are what are those emotions? Sadness, anger, joy, and then despair, disgust. You can see it on the surprise. You don't need to know the language. So these are the primary emotions. Again, sadness, anger, joy, or disgust, and surprise. It's on the face. Then there are secondary emotions, which you really need to know the language of the person, because you talk, because they're not visible. I mean, they're visible on their face. Those secondary emotions are a combination of two primary emotions. For example, love and hate. So love is a secondary emotion, which is a combination of two primary emotions, which are joy and anticipation. Just an example. So guilt and shame both are secondary emotions. There's a combination of two primary emotions, sadness and fear. So if somebody is having a guilt is a good thing, because having a guilt can make you more powerful, give you power to change things. Versus shame, shame makes you powerless, disenfranchising, because you have no clue what you have done, and how you cannot change situations. So guilt takes you towards people. If you have guilt, you go and try to rectify or apologize or whatever you have done. If you've done something, you rectify things. You have the power, you have the control to change your feelings, right? Shame, you have no clue what you have done. It basically takes you away from people, because people, keep on shaming and blaming at you. You don't know what to do. You withdraw from people, and guess what? When you withdraw from people, you start to divorce the human race, and in the end, you are only friends with the drugs and alcohol. Yeah.
Okay.
So the guilt takes you towards people, shame away from. So exactly opposite direction.
Okay, thank you. The other question I think we're moving to the end, but there's what are the psychodynamic of cyberbullying in reference to victims and perpetrator?
So we talk about it's like splitting off, warding off, splitting it into projection of their own negative feeling in system unconscious, system conscious. There's some unwanted feeling which they want to ward off or try to project or unload onto other people, and so the victim, because it is present all the time. So that was the dynamic for the aggressor. The victim start to have this feeling that this is unrelenting thing. Whenever I'm at home, it's every time it's on and on and on and on. So they start to identify with that feeling, and they start to own that. Oh yes, you know what? I am the one at fault, and they start to have this feeling towards that, accepting that, and that is the point, that don't accept that. So but because they feel helpless at that time, the ego regress to the point, because ego works on different things, like ego mechanisms are like synthetic ego mechanism, defensive mechanisms, and also it harbors, like it gives you some harbors to stay in touch with reality. That situation, which is a kind of atypical situation, which creates some kind of atypicality, ego gets regressed, they become more paranoid and start to be more kind of micropsychotic episodes at that position. But then there is the third. So in psychodynamics we talk about it's a triangle, not a dyad. So aggressor, the victim, and then the bystander. Who is the bystander? Bystander is the one in the community who is who's looking at that. So they have this feeling, they have this kind of dynamics of shared responsibility. They look at that there's somebody is cruel, the cruelty is going on. They have some kind of a moral anxiety, and in order to pacify their moral anxiety, first of all, they say they have a diffusion of responsibility. They say that uh, he can do that, she can do that, why I should step up for, I can see that there's a critical. So in this, nobody ends up doing something about that with diffuse responsibility. But then with time they start to pacify their own moral anxiety, and they start to victim blame, like gaslighting, and they start blaming the victim that, oh, you know what, they deserve, they have done that. So because just to pacify their own moral needs. There is a saying from Sigmund Freud. He said it's a very classic saying. He said that most of the people do not most of the people are more immoral than they admit, and they are more moral than they know. Now it's a very deep sentence. Let me repeat it. People are more immoral than they admit, and they are more moral than they know. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. So now I'm introducing Dr. Farheen Fahim. She is child and adolescent psychiatrist in private practice, New Jersey. She is also global president of IMI for last 2 years. Please welcome Dr. Fahim.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much. Very impressive presentation. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Zafar Nafis Naqvi, who has taken his time out of a very busy schedule for this month and the weekend full of majalis, and Dr. Tasbih Fatma to do this presentation for us, and the IMI team, the media team, the IMI Women's Wing for arranging this, a very well-needed topic. I think all of us attendees have a lot of take-home lessons, but for me, the most important is to educate our children, to be the responsible adults. And as you mentioned, the triangle, I really love that idea. Even if your children are not the victim, it's really important to teach them and educate them to not be the bystanders and to identify if someone is being bullied or someone is being victimized, and to at least try to reach out to that person and try to get some help. And in many cases, as a practicing child and adolescent, I've actually noticed patients have come to me because one of the friends flagged the family and called the mom or dad and said, hey, such and such is going on with this child, and he or she is suicidal, and then has shed the light on the victim role. So very good presentation, very concise and very thorough, and I'm sure it'll be very helpful for all of us to be very effective community members and effective family members to support our families. Thank you so much again for all of you.
Thank you
And
for
Dr.
thank you
Zafarnafis.
thank you for inviting me, and thanks everybody.
Okay, so in the end, I thank you everyone. Thank you, Dr. Farheen, for your valuable input. And thank you, Dr. Naqvi, for taking time and sharing your expertise. And I really thank you, IMI team, including coordinator Dr. Nazneen, Dr. Varta, and behind the scene, Brother Asher, and all the team, Julie, and my beloved sister, Dr. Huma Naqvi, so for helping us out to put it together. So inshallah ta'ala, phir mulaqat hogi. Khuda Hafiz.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.